Star Trek's big space western celebrated by cast and crew of Michelle Yeoh's franchise comeback Section 31. In a galaxy filled with phasers, warp drives, and utopian ideals, Star Trek has always straddled genres. It's science fiction, yes, but also social commentary, moral theater, speculative philosophy, and perhaps most iconically, a frontier saga. That latter identity, the idea of Star Trek as a space western, was celebrated with enthusiasm by cast and crew recently, as the franchise prepares for the highly anticipated return of Michelle Yeoh in Star Trek, Section 31. In doing so, they paid tribute not only to her groundbreaking character, Emperor Philippa Georgiou, but to a storytelling tradition as old as Gene Roddenberry's original pitch, Wagon Train to the Stars. From the frontier to the final frontier, when Roddenberry first conceived Star Trek, he imagined it as a western in space. In the mid-1960s, TV westerns like Bonanza and Gunsmoke dominated the airwaves. Roddenberry, a former LAPD officer and pilot with a flair for social philosophy, saw an opportunity to use that framework to explore more profound issues. Swap horses for starships and saloons for starbases, and the basic formula remained. A group of travelers ventures into unknown territory, encounters challenges, and upholds a personal code of justice. That DNA still pulses through the warp core of Star Trek, and it's particularly present in the upcoming Section 31 film, which Yeoh headlines. Billed as a covert mission thriller and morally gray space odyssey, the project takes Yeoh's mirror universe Philippa Georgiou, a former ruthless emperor turned reluctant hero, into uncharted ethical territory. The cast and crew have embraced the project's roots in Western mythos, calling it the franchise's most frontier-driven story in years. Michelle Yeoh, the anti-hero at high noon. At the center of this narrative is Michelle Yeoh, whose return to the franchise has been described as triumphant and long overdue. After years of fans clamoring for more Georgiou, Paramount Plus finally greenlit the Section 31 film, framed not as a traditional Starship mission, but a gritty, morally ambiguous ride into uncharted Federation politics. Philippa is our space gunslinger, said director Olatunde Osunsanmi in a recent panel celebrating the start of post-production. She's not a captain bound by protocol. She's a survivor, a warrior, and a woman who has seen both the best and worst of the galaxy. This film leans into the Western elements that have always been there, but we're turning the dial up to 11. Yeoh herself echoed the sentiment in an interview with Variety. There's a reason we love Westerns. They're about justice, redemption, the clash between civilization and chaos. That's where Georgiou lives. She doesn't wear a white hat, but she's trying in her way to do the right thing. Morality at gunpoint. Section 31 as the Wild West. The concept of Section 31, Starfleet's off the books, intelligence gathering, preemptive strike organization, has always embodied the shadowy corners of Federation idealism. First introduced in Deep Space Nine as a counterbalance to Starfleet's optimism, it was controversial then and remains divisive now. Section 31 is the saloon in the lawless outpost, said screenwriter Craig Sweeney. It's where deals are made, information is traded, and sometimes people get shot in the back. The idea of telling that story with a character like Georgiou, who understands tyranny as well as liberation, made this the perfect Western in space. Sweeney also revealed that the film includes direct homages to classic Westerns, shootouts, standoffs, betrayals, and even a spiritual successor to the iconic Duel at High Noon, though with disruptors instead of 6 shooters. Saloon doors and starbases. Production design tips a hat to the Old West. Production designer Mark Worthington, who previously worked on Star Trek, Discovery, said the design language of Section 31 intentionally fuses frontier iconography with futuristic elements. We looked at Deadwood, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and even Firefly, which itself was a kind of love letter to Westerns, Worthington explained. The goal was to make the Federation's underworld feel like a rough-edged town at the edge of civilization. You'll see cracked stone walls, dimly lit corridors, and yes, even swinging doors in a certain bar. It's not subtle, but it doesn't have to be. Worthington's sets are rich with texture and history, places where every piece of furniture and fabric suggests a story. The cold sterility of Starfleet's clean corridors is replaced with smoky lighting and cluttered dens. There's a weight to these spaces, Worthington said. like a gunslinger could walk in any second. The music of the stars and the dust. Composer Jeff Russo, a veteran of Discovery and Picard, described scoring Section 31 as a dream assignment for a composer who grew up watching spaghetti westerns. For Giorgio, I created a theme that's equal parts mournful and defiant. Think Ennio Morricone meets synth-based atmosphere, Russo revealed. There's a loneliness to her journey, a kind of wandering samurai vibe. But we never forget this is Star Trek, the hopeful core still beats under the grit. Russo's score includes homages to both classic Trek themes and vintage Western motifs. Expect guitars, strings, choral whispers, and percussive tension that swells like tumbleweeds blowing across a distant Martian canyon. A legacy of Western Trek, Star Trek has long flirted with the Western genre. In TOS's Spectre of the Gun, Kirk and crew are forced to reenact the shootout at the OK Corral. The Next Generation placed Worf in a holodeck western in A Fistful of Datas. Even Enterprise dipped its boots into cowboy territory with episodes like North Star. But never before has a Trek project leaned so fully into Western genre storytelling as Section 31 appears to be doing. This is the first time we're not just referencing Westerns, we're telling one, said executive producer Alex Kurtzman. It's raw, it's personal, and it asks the hard questions that Westerns are uniquely suited to explore. Kurtzman added that the success of Michelle Yeoh's Oscar win for Everything Everywhere All at Once reinvigorated the studio's commitment to giving her a starring vehicle. She's an international icon. She deserved something big, bold, and unlike anything we've done before in Trek. This is that. Cast tributes and wild frontier camaraderie. Alongside Yeoh, the supporting cast includes newcomers and familiar faces from Discovery. Shazad Latif reprises his role as Ash Tyler, former Klingon double agent and now a Section 31 operative. Latif described the film as a battle for the soul, both personally and politically. We're not playing by the rules in this story, he said. Section 31 forces you to ask, how far are you willing to go to protect your ideals? And what happens when you become the very thing you feared? Other cast members include Rebecca Romijn as Commander Una Chin Riley, briefly stepping in to represent Starfleet's legitimate side, and a surprise guest appearance rumored but unconfirmed to be Ethan Peck's Spock, a nod to how the Federation is always watching, even from the shadows. A return to Trek's risk-taking roots. In embracing the Western template, Section 31 reminds us why Star Trek has remained relevant for nearly 6 decades. It's the willingness to experiment, to redefine its own parameters, and to take creative risks. From the utopian optimism of TNG to the spiritual mysticism of DS9 to the action thriller lens of the Kelvin films, and now the morally gray storytelling of Section 31, the franchise refuses to stand still. Michelle Yeoh's return marks a generational convergence, a veteran actor at the top of her game, a franchise seeking new dimensions, and a genre reborn among the stars. As Giorgio rides off into her next mission, half warrior, half outlaw, she carries the legacy of both the Starfleet and the Wild West. And as the crew behind Section 31 would tell you, there's no better place for a showdown than the final frontier. Would you like this formatted for a blog post or publication layout? Other cast members include Rebecca Romijn as Commander Una Chin Riley, briefly stepping in to represent Starfleet's legitimate side, and a surprise guest appearance rumored but unconfirmed to be Ethan Peck's Spock, a nod to how the Federation is always watching, even from the shadows.